Welcome to the Good Morning from the Chicken Coop podcast with Kim Johnson, your creative strategist and master mindset coach. Filled with inspiration, distinctions, perspectives, and possibilities, we help you to cultivate a mindset that leads you to create the best version of yourself you could ever imagine. Join Kim every morning from one of her favorite happy places, her chicken coop, along with all her chickens.
Hey everybody, good morning from the chicken coop. So let me ask you a question. What do you believe happiness is? If I asked you to define happiness, what would you come up with? Have you ever actually sat and thought about it? Have you ever actually said to yourself, well, how do I personally define happiness? I think this question is critical to our well-being, because if we don't define happiness and we don't put ourselves in a position of regularly examining how we do this, what ends up happening is we start to focus on, as human beings, we all do it anyway, focus on what's wrong. And we say, well, I'm not happy because there's something that makes us unhappy or irritates us. And then we end up going to a position of being unhappy in the world. And I don't think that's necessary, because is anybody ever happy 1,000% of the time? Well, that depends on how you define it. And everybody's got individual ways that they go through this. And I think that we're not taught this when we're little. I know we're not taught this when we're little. And I think that telling someone to just be happy is frustrating, especially if you are unhappy. The last thing you want is someone to walk up to you and say, well, just be happy. Because if I knew how to be happy, don't you think I would be happy? But I'm not happy. So therefore, I am in this state of despair and disgust about myself because I just can't do it, what you're saying. So I thought it would be an interesting, jumping off point for us, if you will, to look at how you personally define happiness and tell you how I look at this in my own world, because I've gone through this multiple times in my life at different points in time and read endless numbers of content on this. And I find it really fascinating how certain people tell you to do things and don't understand where you are, where you're beginning, and what's going on. And I don't want to do that to you guys ever. So I'm going to give you some thoughts on how I do it, and you can see if this works for you. Because I personally don't believe that we were meant to be happy all the time. That does not mean we were meant to be miserable as well. I believe emotions are a guidance system, and I believe that they are here to give us information, and what we do with it pulls us back. So we are supposed to be on a course in our lives overall. Our course is like, if you were thinking of it in terms of taking a trip, you are going to go from Boston to LA, let's say. And there's an intention to get on that plane and fly. But the whole time you're flying, of course, everything has to be redirected because of weather and conditions and all these other things that take place. And there's constant corrections. Well, that's just like our life, right? We're supposed to, work on seeing what makes us thrive, what gives us passion, if you will, what gives us, that feeling of I'm doing well. And as we're on that course, happiness is part of it. Dalai Lama says the purpose of life is to be happy. And I believe that. I believe the purpose that we are here is to find our version of happy and to work into that every single day, finding your version of happy. However, because we're human beings and because things happen and because we develop with resistance, the more things that show up in our lives that help shape us, whether they're positive, negative, doesn't matter, we develop with resistance. And we resist things naturally as human beings. It's crazy how we do it, but we just do it. And we'll often say, wow, this started out and it was a really crappy situation, but now I can see the benefits of it. But in the beginning, we resisted it. It's just our nature to be more cautious on that. But for me, happiness is something that I work towards every single day. Am I happy 1,000% of the time? No, that would be silly, and I would never say that that's the truth. But what I do look for is stringing happy moments together and remembering those happy moments, because when I can string them together throughout a day, throughout a week, a month, and capture things like that, then I can look back and say, wow, I actually do have happy things happening, even if bad things happen. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what, a bounty you have in your life. You're going to have things that happen that aren't fun, that aren't good. And that's okay. It's totally okay, because that's the human condition. That's what we do. And, we all figure out our way through it one way or another. But stringing these happy events together is a process of training your brain to look for them in the first place. So you can start to say, okay, these micro happy events, as I like to call them, these tiny things that happen. Your dog is out on a walk with you, and your dog happens to look up at you while you're walking, because your dog is just here to remind you of how much you're loved. I mean, I'm convinced of that. Dogs are here to remind us how much we're loved. You're walking, your dog looks up at you. That's a happy moment. You're getting unconditional love in that moment. And you might not get any other unconditional love in the day, but from that dog in that moment, he gave it to you. Did you even notice? Well, that's a question. Did you notice? I tend to use my camera. Those of you who are regular listeners know that I do this. I tend to use my camera to take pictures of little things that I find that are my happy moments. Flowers, butterflies, walking around, things that are cool pictures, angles of trees, architecture, anything during my day. And I legitimately have way too many photos in my iPhoto. My husband would be the first one to tell you this. But they are, for me, the roadmap of, did I find anything, visually today that brought me those little moments of joy? And I do it every day. And that's why you're hearing me out in the chicken coop, because they bring me so much joy. I brought them out this morning, bananas and shredded zucchini, and you should have seen how excited they were. They were just going crazy. And I know that that's a joy for them. So I bring that to them, and it brings me joy and happiness, and I can string that moment together. And at the end of the day, I have all these moments I can refer back to that say, wow, today I strung a nice thread of happy moments. And I don't have to focus on the fact that it has to be 24/7, because that's ridiculous. It's the beginning of the school year. I know I'm going to have resistance and have things that show up with my son because, back to school, right? That's going to happen. For those of us that have kids that are back in school, some of them are excited, but the majority of them are like, I don't want to do this. And it's okay, because we're going to work our way through it, and we will find happy things. And I will say to him, tell me something happy that happened today. Tell me something great that happened today. Give me those little threads so that I can start to weave something that puts people in a better place and puts myself in a better place. So your challenge is going to be to go out and start to string together some happy thoughts, happy moments, happy recognitions, just those little tiny droplets. And remember, don't fault yourself for not being happy all the time, because nobody is. And if they're telling you that, they're full of shit, because they're not. And it's okay. What we want to do is just constantly navigate ourselves back to a place where we're neutral and where we can take in and where we can notice and where we can be at peace and centered. And choose happiness throughout it. Now, do I believe the purpose of life is to be happy? Yes, I do, because I think that why would anybody want to do anything but that? But that is a process that you have to work at and work at and work at and work at. So go string some happy thoughts together today. Go find some happy moments, and I will see you guys tomorrow.